Welcome to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Today we've got a real special guest. This person is on our team and made the transition from inside sales agent to outside sales agent. Not a lot of people have done that, so it's going to be interesting to discuss with him what he's done to make that transition, the differences between both of those roles, and what you need to do to succeed in each of those roles. So welcome to the show, Peter Applegate.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show today, Peter. Before we dive into inside sales agent, outside sales agent, why don't you tell the listeners out there a little bit about yourself, how you got into the real estate industry, and just a quick synopsis of your journey since.
Sure. So I've been on the team since 2016, January 2016, so almost 5 years. And real estate was something I'd wanted to get into for a while, and that was really what made the inside sales agent role so attractive. Was, you know, there is still a salary, there's more of a safety net there. It's not a hunt what you kill, basically. I mean, you're going to survive for a few months, and you kind of know that, so that makes it a lot easier than, you know, just going in 1099 and not getting a paycheck for 3 to 6 months wasn't something I could do. So yeah, I did that for a while and kind of learned the trade a bit and moved on. So it's been good so far. I started as an OSA in February this year, so it's been an interesting ride. But
for those of you who don't know, OSA, outside sales agent, that's on our team. That's what we call it, like our buyer's agents, our listing agents, versus inside sales agent, which is the guys and gals who are hammering the phones and booking appointments. One guy is the Magic Johnson, if you will. The other is the Michael Jordan. Right? You got the setup person and the scorer.
Yeah.
So what's you started off as inside sales agent. How was that? Like how is it out there? You know, starting off in real estate as an inside sales agent. You know, what are the pros, the cons, the challenges?
I guess it depends where you're at. I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not that hard either. It's not easy, but it's simple. You have to get good at dealing with objections, talking to people, and closing. But once you do that, it's really straightforward as far as what you have to do to succeed. You just have to come in, make your calls, and like after you get good enough, you're going to convert if you make enough calls. So it's just getting in there and consistently, you know, getting your 3, 4, 5 hours a day of calling in. And if you could do that, you're going to be successful.
Yep, consistent effort over time, no matter what you're doing. You know, you guys have heard it time and time before here, but consistent effort over time is going to produce results no matter what you're doing. And like Peter said, inside sales agent is not very difficult in the sense that it's not hard to figure out. You just have to be willing to get through a certain amount of shit to right, like those first couple weeks or months, you know, getting through objections for the first time, booking appointments before you start to see the commission checks come in. You know, not everyone can get through that period, but if you put in the 2, 3, 4 hours of calling a day consistently, you know, no matter if you're calling expires or FSBOs, right, outbound calling or circle prospecting or inbound calling, like no matter what you're doing, if you just put the time in, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, that, I mean, as far as the pros, I mean, obviously having a guaranteed salary is a huge pro, and it's a lot easier at a team like this because one of my biggest fears, you know, getting into the real estate industry, because I own a house now, but I was renting at the time, like, how am I going to convince somebody I'm the right person to help them buy a house? I've never even done it. Like, we're going to be looking at the contract for the first time together. It seemed like a really tough sell for someone. So being able to stand behind the team's reputation and be like, hey, we're number one. We have, hundreds of homes, all this experience. Really just kind of took away that, not even objection, I guess, that fear of rejection, more than actual rejection, because very few people actually ask, like, how long you've been doing this and how many homes you've been selling.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the base salary. So for those of you who don't know, our ISAs get a base salary, then they're paid bonuses on the appointments that result in closings that the other team members are taking. So it's a very team-oriented approach because, Peter and other ISAs are depending on other people to close the deals to get their paycheck. I think the other cool thing about it is you get a lot of at-bats. If you're an outside sales agent, listing agent, you're only working with a certain group of clients at a time, maybe 10, 20.
Right.
Inside sales agent, you're on the phone, you're talking to 30, 40, 50 people a day, so you're getting more repetition. So I think you're getting more actual skill building in that appointment setting area, talking to people area, overcoming objections area. You're getting more reps at that.
Yeah, at that one specific thing, and that's the big difference is, like, with ISA, because once we get the appointment, it goes to the OSA, and they pretty much handle it from there, unless it's somebody who just absolutely cannot buy a home for the next couple of years. Like, they, just got divorced and had a bankruptcy, and, like, it's not happening for them. Like, those leads go back to the ISA, but beyond that, somebody who's, 6 months out and is waiting for this promotion, but they're going to get it, like, that's one that stays with the OSAs. So what's a lot harder in that position is kind of figuring out the next step and how to move them forward. Because with ISA, it's like you have this lead, you call this lead, you schedule an appointment. Like, I can just pick people up. I don't have to know what's in their record, what we've talked to them about previously. I can just call them and be like, hey, do you want to meet next Tuesday? With OSA, it's a little more, what's the word? Precise. That's not even the right word for it, but you have to figure out what's needed for that specific person to move them along.
Yeah, you got to tailor it a little bit more to them.
Yeah, it's not just, hey, we're going to meet, because we've already done that. So, like, now maybe it's getting them out to see properties or getting them to go ahead and get pre-approved even though they know they can qualify and yada yada.
And you can make a 6-figure salary without doing open houses, driving people to showings, writing offers at midnight.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is, like, you have days off, which in the real estate industry is uncommon. So that's a really nice thing. And sometimes, as an ISA, occasionally, I'd be responding to an email or something at like 10 o'clock at night from somebody who wants to go see a house the next day. But that's more the exception than the rule, and it's not really the expectation. Like, I work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Somebody calls me at 10 o'clock, I'll get back to them tomorrow. Or
what are some of the challenges specifically with calling, dealing with objections? I think some people might be listening and think, I'm not an ISA. Well, every real estate agent starts off as an ISA. When you're a solo agent, you are an ISA, and even when you hire admin and start building on a team, up until a certain point, you are like the primary ISA, and then even after that, you're training or overseeing the person that's training and managing them. So every real estate agent is an ISA. So let's talk about some of the challenges with the job and things people can do to overcome those.
Yeah, it's not knowing what to say is the biggest one, because that's how you get hung up on, like, the first step. And so much of it's mindset, and that's to expand upon that. Like, someone will hit you with an objection that you just don't know how to handle, somewhere it's like, wow, yeah, maybe you shouldn't buy a house right now. You can kind of think and tailor that experience, and by knowing what to say, it's not a static script like of these words, because that's what you don't need is a list of 3 pages. Here's exactly how the conversation's going to go. You just need to figure out what the pain points are and how you can solve the problem, or if you can solve the problem, and then expressing that to them. But a lot of times it's just keeping them on the phone. Like, oh, you don't want to buy a home? Oh, you can't find a home? You already found a home? Like, why don't you want to buy a home? And just kind of like keeping through that. And I mean, I enjoy that part of it. It's just like the people who don't want to hang up on you, they just want to say something to make you hang up on them and just not taking the hint. It's been like, oh, okay. So like how else are things going? And just keeping that conversation going. And you'll get hung up on eventually, or repeatedly, but you'll kind of notice like what works, what buys you time, what gets you hung up on faster, and then just tailoring it. And I wish I had like a detailed document with what little strategies or micro scripts work, but it's just something that I've learned and just applied.
Keep them on the phone.
Yeah, just keep them there. That's the first step, because if they hang up on you, you're not getting the appointment. Well, most of the time you can text them. I mean, it's just that persistent effort. The way I see it, once you have a list, like one thing I've noticed I think we do different than a lot of agents, someone will tell me like, no, I'm definitely not interested. And I'll call them back in 6 months. Like, I don't care. Unless they tell me to, like, fuck off, we're calling them back in 6 to 12 months for the people who just aren't interested. And a lot of people mark that as a dead lead, and then they're like, you know, these leads suck. There's no leads in here. Because 6 months goes by before you know it, and, like, it doesn't bother you. There's no action in between then. So I just have a list of people that I'm supposed to call in 6 to 12 months. And that list sucks. It's not going to be a lot of good leads, but you just got to get through and hammer it out, and then you'll be just surprised because people's circumstances change and there are leads in there that a lot of people just give up on. I mean, we have leads we're calling that have been in our system since 2013.
What's the appointment or sale that you remember most in terms of like the person was a hard ass or it took 20 calls to get or just...
I got a few, yeah. Guy, I'm not going to say his name on there, but he's a developer of a condo building in Arlington who had sold like, I think it's like 80 units or something like that, and he'd sold 75 of them with one listing agent and then called us up to sell the last 3, and he absolutely did not want to meet with somebody and, you know, just wanted to do a phone call with the listing agent and didn't understand why we weren't going to do that and don't we want his business. And just kind of explaining to them, like, yeah, we have a process, you know, for every lead we deal with, and we stick to that process, and it works, so when are you available? And eventually we did end up getting the business and sold, I think, the last 3 condos. And we've sold a lot of units in that building. Actually, we have one for sale now. Once we got a turn. We sell a lot of units in that building. Possibly not the most, but a lot.
Yeah, I think people that are big clients or wealthy people... Sometimes, people bend over backwards and treat them differently. And a lot of times they don't even realize that the biggest thing you can do for them is to treat them like everyone else. And like give them the same systems and processes that you've proven to other people.
Yeah, that, and I mean, I'll share a couple of the recordings, but I got a few. I got one who was absolutely sure she was not going to work with us because she didn't want an agent and she was going to negotiate, closing cost credits by not having a cooperating agent. And that's when you get a lot once you get to a certain price point. Like, I've noticed at the lower price points, people don't really care, fight about that as much. But once you get to like $1 million plus, these people are thinking, hey, that's a car that I'm paying someone to, fill out some paperwork and do an inspection with me. Like, that's too much. I'm
yeah. So what do you do to convince them of the value?
A few different things.
Because obviously, if they're buying $1 million, they're looking at, oh my gosh, I want to get back some of that $30,000 in commission, right? But how do you convince them that you can do better?
Well, I mean, there's a few different strategies you can go with. The first one is figuring out the why. So it's, do they want to do that because they just don't see the value in it and they want to save $30,000, or do they need a credit to make this deal work? Because if they need a credit, it's a little harder. You have to get creative and talk about lender credits or figuring out some other way to get them that money. But if it's just a matter of getting them the best deal, I go to off markets. So it's like, great, I understand you're a lawyer and you have access to Zillow so you can see properties and you know how to fill out the paperwork and you don't need my help because you've done this. I have properties you can't see on Zillow. If I can find something for you and you pay me a commission and you still get, a solution to said problem, we get you credits or, we get you a below market deal, like, would that be good? And then, the answer is yes to these questions. Like, the right answer is yes. If they say no, you just kind of have to repeat it to the way it's like, you hear how this sounds, right? Like what you're telling me right now. And normally you'll get a meeting. It's hard with investors because a lot of them aren't going to sign a commit. So, like, once we get that meeting, we're trying to get the buyer agreement signed in the meeting. And we don't, there's no, like, retainer fee. It's real easy for them to get out of it, but it's like your Netflix subscription. A lot of people just don't take that action to terminate it. So that's pretty much the game plan.
How has the transition been from ISA to OSA? Going from setting the appointments to
it's different
to needing to get people to closing.
Yeah, I'm more critical of how we qualify people now, for sure, on the ISA side. So I still go down there and give them some feedback on that sometimes. But it's tough again because it's not as simple. Like, for ISA, pretty much we're really experienced and off markets. And off markets is the big one. We beat people over the head with that. Both for sellers, too. They don't want a bunch of people coming in their house, especially during a pandemic. Like, off markets, great solution. But it's just figuring out what the next step is. And that's what takes more time and more thoughtfulness.
Yeah, it's more you're in a more long-term relationship now,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, versus
so you got to keep that person engaged, overcome objections over a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm.
What's been the toughest challenge for you about that?
A lot of it's mindset again. Just staying organized and focused. So right when quarantine hit, which is like right when I started, I didn't really have a lot of clients. So it was very easy for me to like get into bad habits or to not commit to doing certain activities consistently. And that's something I've been getting better with now. So it's improved markedly, but just consistent action, like staying in touch with like client Bs. So it's real easy with an A. It's like, hey, here's new properties. Do you want to see them? With a B, it takes a little more finesse to stay in front of them and keep a conversation going when they're really not ready to do anything. Like, because some people, depending on their circumstances, it doesn't make sense for them to buy immediately.
Right.
And like figuring out what are you going to do to keep top of mind with that person.
So it's more email follow-up, phone call, text.
Yeah,
how are you staying in front of people during their home search?
Oh man, and this. Yeah, mostly it depends. Like younger folks, it's mostly text messaging. I found that's the most effective thing. And I'll do the phone a bit, although I found a lot of these people just don't like phone calls that much. Or it's the opposite. They want to keep me on the phone for half an hour for something that we should be able to get done in about 3 minutes, and they just keep going. So mostly text messages and emails, just kind of like pinging people. Like so like the MLS searches, I BCC myself on all of those, so I respond to those. Like when I see new properties, it's like, hey, do you see 123 Main Street, and are you available tomorrow? But yeah, honestly, I probably need some better strategies for the longer out people and like how to keep in touch.
What are you most excited about during this transition?
Well, there's more money potential because you can make 6 figures as an ISA here. That's not a problem. But I think you're limited to a point. Like I think it'd be really tough for an ISA here to make 200,000, or like beyond that. And there are definitely agents who do much better than that on our team. So that the higher income potential, which is kind of the trade-off, because with ISA there's a higher floor. You're guaranteed something. Outside sales, you're guaranteed absolutely nothing. And there's a lot of fringe benefits too. You get paid vacation, you get insurance. There's probably some other stuff I'm overlooking. Well, there's a ton of like fitness benefits, but it's just there's not as much potential.
Hopefully soon. They need to open the gym up. So Washington Ritt and Greg and Lindsay, if you're listening to this, it's time to open that gym up. But a little plug there for that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's an interesting time. So like the big appeal was I was like, I'm really tired of coming into the office 40, 50 hours a week. And so the irony, I switched, and then everybody stopped coming in the office 40, 50 hours a week. So I don't know. Timing was bad there, but hey, we're moving through it.
Yeah, well, definitely more opportunity, more upside. So I'm looking forward to you, reaching that potential and hitting those big numbers. And your start in inside sales agent role, it's consistency, effort over time is what gets the job done, and it's like that with anything really. This has been a great show. Before we wrap up, I want to do our hyper fast round if you are ready for some rapid fire questions. All right, what's your biggest piece of advice to a new inside sales agent?
Do not get dejected and just you got to be able to laugh stuff off, because depending on the list you're calling, if you're calling like a circle prospecting list or an expired list, you might get cussed out pretty frequently. Those are the only ones. Other than that, it's uncommon. But just being able to laugh about it, oh man, that guy was really pissed off, wonder what kind of day he's having, and just having a short memory with those things. If something goes really bad, just next call. If something goes good, next call. You can take a moment with something good, kind of be like, oh, I'm nice. Next call.
All right, what's your biggest piece of advice to a new outside sales agent, buyer's agent, listing agent, etc.?
Have a plan. Whether that's going to be open houses, direct marketing, figure out where your business is going to come from and focus your energy accordingly.
What's been the biggest challenge for you in any role you've had in real estate, and what did you do to overcome it?
Biggest challenge. Really, it's not getting hung up on the details as much, because I'm a high C personality type. So when I'm going through a buyer agreement or a contract with a client, sometimes I'll spend a little too much time explaining points that I think are really important and we need to focus on, when most of the time, if they're not asking, they're not concerned, and the fact that I'm spending so much time talking about it kind of freaks them out. So getting past that and realizing that not everyone has the same perspective or concerns that you might have. And so not projecting your concerns onto others.
All right. When you're not slinging homes, what would we find you doing
a lot of snowboarding, yeah. Doing a lot of that.
Is that open?
It's not open yet. It'll be open real soon. November, Colorado.
Okay.
Maybe October. We'll see.
All right. Last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Probably running a team here. Yeah.
All right. Growing into a mini team leader. That would be awesome to see. Well, thanks for being on the show, Peter. Before we sign off, if people want to get in touch with you or follow you on social media or connect, what's the best way?
It's Peter S. Applegate on Instagram, or on our team's Facebook page, or just on our website.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Peter. For all of you out there listening and watching, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos. I'll see you next time.